Hello, everybody. Welcome to another video here on the Point 3 podcast. We are two-thirds of your favorite trio of hosts. To my right, Lou, and myself, Hero Scroll. Hope everybody is having a good day. Make sure you subscribe to us here on YouTube. Give us a like and a follow. We appreciate all of that good stuff. But if you are watching this, that means it is May 1st, and we are 2 years away from Avengers Secret Wars and a little over a year away from Avengers Doomsday, which got us really thinking and wanting to talk about Secret Wars, both the movie, but more specifically, the two comic runs back from 1984 and 2015. So today we're going to talk about them, talk about kind of what these stories mean to us and how we think that they are going to apply into the MCU. But Lou, kicking it over to you now that you have them fresh in your mind, how do you feel about going back through these stories?
Man, I listen, I gotta say these two stories share likeness and name only, right? The 1984 story is just a fun, free thrill ride and a combination of all things that you wanted as a kid and probably now as an adult and everywhere in between watching this. Like, it is a superhero fan's dream for the most part, giving you all the drama, all the action, all the goodies with that story. And then you get to 2015 and you crack open that first issue, or you open whatever it is that you're reading it on, and you just feel this weight of something epic that's about to unfold. And you're like, here we go. It is just two awesome stories that, as going through, because I never read the 1984, just full transparency. I never read it. I always heard it and people talk about it and they're just like, you shouldn't read it, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's not important. 2015 went through, have a different perspective now, especially with starting the podcast, and just the impact of each is not the same, but they're both extremely impactful. And as someone who loves Marvel, loves reading comics, loves the MCU, loves the toys, loves like everything Marvel, I had a blast reading both of these, and I had no problem reading them back to back. I did not feel like I was like, this is the same story. It's not. It's not. No. They were absolutely awesome.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I love that. I love that you got to experience both of them and really have an appreciation, because I'm definitely the same way, right? I read them last year, reread them before we started talking about this. And man, just the roller coaster that both of them take you are just not the same. It's like going to a roller coaster in like Islands of Adventure in Universal Studios and getting on like the Incredible Hulk and then doing something completely different in like a Disney World park. Still a world-class roller coaster, but just something completely different. They offer you these experiences and these stories that you're just like, again, you said it so well. It's the similarities are in name only, right? And I think it's based on both the purpose of what each story was originally trying to do. So for those that don't know, the 1984 was really originally made to sell toys. DC was outdoing Marvel in the toy department, and Marvel was like, no, we got to catch up. So let's kind of try to do a double whammy of doing this big crossover event to promote the toys. The toys weren't super successful. Secret Wars, though, ended up becoming one of the most successful things of all time for them, having the inverse effect. Now, the 2015 one, though, was really to condense the multiverse of Marvel into one through the incursions in this event. And that's what they did. So, for example, characters like the Maker, like Miles Morales, finally were now officially like full canon into the mainline Marvel universe. So when you read these stories and you see the focus on both like what characters the stories choose to focus on, you really get to see what they're aiming for.
Yeah, and it's funny going back through and seeing like the starting point of each story to where the 1984 is like fresh, like from the jump in issue 1. It's just like blah, characters show up and they're just like, why did you choose these? When you kind of go through and look outside the box of like, and you look at the roster, those are very likable, marketable, great design characters. Like, they're appealing characters that they picked for that Secret War story for both the villain team and the hero team. But then when you go to 2015, that kind of, again, to your point, that combination of all of these stories and the lead up, it feels like there's a huge payoff. Like Secret Wars in 2015, for those watching who are like, maybe I'm not into comics, it literally feels like that Infinity War movie that we got, of like all that time spent, all these characters known, all the lead up and backstory and history for all of them comes to a head here for a lot of characters. But at the end of the day, one big picture thing that we definitely are going to be talking about, you get two juicy versions and stories of Doom.
Yeah.
And man, Doom is good.
Yeah. And one more thing I want to add, which will eventually add into the Doom aspect of both stories, specifically more the 2015 version. But for those also that don't know, is that the seeds for the 2015 version were really started back in the Fantastic Four run by Jonathan Hickman. So Jonathan Hickman is the author of the writer of many comic book stories, but the Secret Wars, the event. But he wrote a lot of other stories that eventually kind of kept putting seeds, planting seeds of both incursions, these characters, how they figure it out, from really starting back in 2009 with the Fantastic Four. So if we think about it, 2009 to 2015, that is 6 years of storytelling, which in comic aspect, that is a long time to tell one giant story. That, yes, have a lot of different things happen in between, but for that to be the end goal, that is gigantic.
And the cool thing across that whole time too, especially for that core 3-year run, and to your point, 3 years is a really long time. One thing that I like noting is like you do have your build up of the story of Doom and Reed as it kind of comes to a head in Secret Wars. But the quality of the story of Secret Wars, you can pick up issue 1 and read it all the way through and get to the end and be like, I feel like I know these two characters, and all the other stuff can be extra, but that's just the skill that went into the storytelling of this specifically to be like standalone. It's super powerful. Add in the extra stuff over the course of those 6 years, and you're like literally on overdrive hyper steroids for this story, and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing.
Yeah. And that is only then added by just the pure awesome moments that we get in both the 84 run and the more current run. In the 84, you getting to see all these, again, like you said, all these villains kind of gathering together for the first time against all the heroes. You have the Avengers and the X-Men going at each other. You have the debut of the symbiote suit, which is a gigantic event for Marvel because of what that eventually becomes and how iconic that truly is. You have Magneto manipulating people, debating if he's really for the heroes or not. Then you fast forward to the 2015 version, and you have all these really cool moments. Probably the one that people are always going to talk about the most: Doom, God Emperor Doom, ripping out Thanos' spine, which, I mean, was a very, very cool and impactful moment. But Lou, hit him with some of these other ones that we were talking about.
Listen, man, I mean, both of them have like screenshot worthy moments that are just like, I just can't get over 84. It's just the drama, man. The drama within some of these panels is amazing. But for 2015, I mean, listen, you get, I think one of the coolest things, and one that like I'm trying to think of other things and not this, but I might as well just get it out of the way so I can clear my brain. T'Challa and Namor together was awesome. And T'Challa in this 2015 run was so, he's an ace, S tier. Like Black Panther is awesome in this.
Yes.
Absolutely awesome. But you get so many other great moments just throughout, and shout out just to the art and in Secret Wars, but like the Doom Reed combinations, just when the Cabal comes in, Thor Corps, the Barons and the Generals of Battle World itself, and all of these things, it doesn't take long, but each of them are so impactful in terms of the dialogue and the visuals that you get in 2015, to where like I didn't remember Sinister very much. I loved every time I saw Sinister on a panel. I was like, yes. Like I was looking forward to the next time. I'm like, what is so fun. so fun. And even with the Thor core, like it's just it was great. But I did want to point one thing out that was like a parallel between the two, and which ties into this is just like the theme of survivability and morality is everywhere in these stories,
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. But never at any point does it feel overwhelming, or did I stop myself and say like, I get it. Like
Yeah,
I get the theme. I understand. Like it's a little too much. It's you want more. You want more and
100%.
more and more and more and more. And even when it's done, I'm like, I, maybe I'll reread it. So when I went through and read 84, I was like, I'm getting more of it. Like this is disgusting, but I can't get enough.
Yeah. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. And you're gonna hear us talk about it through the course of this video and many, many other times later on as Secret Wars gets closer and closer, and so does Doomsday. And I'm sure if you've watched us, some of you might have watched other videos on it. But if you've never read either of these stories, I think for the both of us, we cannot say how much more you would get if you go and read these for yourselves, how much more fun you will truly have reading these stories for yourself and really getting to see these moments, especially in their context and how much better it is. You're going to
Yeah.
have a huge blast.
I will say throughout the years, right, at the time of, obviously 1984 was a pretty long time ago. In 2015, we're looking at a decade plus. And throughout times, you'll see many people have gone through on YouTube. And again, I appreciate every single one of you that put in the time to make, whether it's 15 minutes or an hour 40 or 2 hours, recapping, sharing the knowledge, telling people what the Secret Wars stories are about, because I do think that everyone in a lot of ways can bring their own flavor to it. But
Mhm.
there are elements that you miss because the stories are so large, and the way that the stories are told, it can kind of be difficult to recap these in a very chronological order, because things that are like the outcome might have happened a couple issues early, but this is where the effect comes in, and vice versa type of thing. So it's like if you're looking at visuals and you're like, oh cool, I know X, Y, and Z happened, there are aspects and contexts that are missing from a lot of these videos that I've heard, to where it kind of lessens maybe that time that T'Challa does show up, or you see a panel where it's actually
Mhm.
Black Panther with the Infinity Gauntlet versus God Emperor Doom. You're like, oh, cool, but he ripped out Thanos' spine. I would argue the impact was much greater with Black Panther versus God Emperor Doom than it was with Thanos and the whole Doom moment. Still fantastic. Both of them are equal great in so many ways, but in the context of the story itself, you miss a lot. And I think that is more applicable to the 1984 version as well.
Agreed. 100%. 100%. And I will say, definitely have an open mind on both stories, right? Because I have seen a lot of people, especially on the first Secret Wars run, be like, "Oh, it's not as good." BS of 2015. I think that can't be further from the truth. I just think you
Agree.
need to be open minded.
Agree.
And a lot of people obviously like a certain form of storytelling within more modern comic books because,
Yep.
yeah, the way they tell stories are different. However, again, I think both are absolutely phenomenal, and you will have a really, really fun time reading both of them. So, again, if you haven't, definitely go read them. But moving on, I think to the next piece that we want to touch on, and again, is the main topic of this video, is what version of this story are we going to get? And the main focus of that is going to be clearly Doctor Doom. Both versions of the Secret Wars runs have him as the main villain, as the main antagonist, as the main person that the heroes have to finally come together, unite, and defeat. So, Lou, based on what you've read on the comics and based about what we know within the MCU right now, how do you think they are going to incorporate Doctor Doom into both Doomsday and Secret Wars?
I mean, I think first you kind of have to boil down to like, what are the core aspects or characteristics of Doom that you kind of pull from each version of Secret Wars to make kind of the new adaptation that we're going to get in the MCU. And I think one of the biggest things is you're going to have a Doom that will ultimately be this all powerful character, but he still needs to have the inclusion of, I'm still a deeply flawed character and I'm an extremely insecure character. And when you look at him from the aspect of, I am flawed and I'm insecure, it's going to help really shape how he does create a battle world, or how he does essentially use his power to rule or to be that kind of overarching figure over the heroes and villains or whatever the domain will be in the movie. I think that's kind of the two things I want to feel that from him throughout. But I'll ask you this and flip it over to your perspective. The way that Doom acts or does, or his motivations, like, what do you think will kind of lead him down that road to ultimately give us that all powerful version of Doom that we ultimately see?
I think it's going to be kind of a combination of what you said and what I think they might pull from the comics, where it's both that insecurity and that lust for something more it will never be enough, and that'll be the lust for power that he has. Where really, I think, despite Secret Wars being the big culmination of Doctor Doom and Reed's big relationship that they have and the beef that they have with each other, I think this is a good opportunity to really set the stage going forward for both of them, especially Doom, and really setting him from the get-go of what drives him and what will lead to his jealousy over these other heroes, especially Reed.
Yeah.
And I think what you could do to start really is, and I know that this will probably be a big like MCU original creation, especially given that RDJ is going to be Doctor Doom. I think you can just have the vanity aspect of Doctor Doom come in, where he's like, my face is disfigured, so I'm going to come into this new world because mine got destroyed. I'm here, but I have to take a face, and I'm going to take the face of their greatest hero, and I'm going to twist it into something that is unrecognizable to the people. And I think that's how you get Tony Stark's face onto a Victor Von Doom.
Yep.
I think he is going to behave like Victor Von Doom, not Tony Stark. He's not going to be evil Iron Man, but I think that's how he gets his face. And then later on, at some point, when him and Reed interact, whether it be the first time or not, I feel like it should be the first time. I think he sees how smart he is, and he feels threatened by that. And then he sees the family that he has, and he yearns for that because he will never have that. And I think throughout the movie, you have them struggle. You have him kind of do a step ladder of him gaining more power throughout it, right? You can start with him gaining Sentry's power to eventually get to Loki. And when he gets Loki's power, that makes him, or allows him, to become God Emperor Doom. And then that leads into Secret Wars, which they can really pull into what they do in the 2015 version.
Yeah, and I think the part that you had mentioned, I love that, dude, of taking Tony's face, because that was one of the biggest shock and awe moments that we probably had in a while, is when we got that reveal at SCCC of, hey, Robert Downey Jr. is going to play Dr. Doom, Victor Von Doom, different character. But the one core thing is him playing that type of character that very much is flawed and insecure. But one thing in the 2015 run is when Doom is talking to Sue, and they're standing on the castle and they're overlooking the rest of the town. And he's like, I'm beginning to think that in my perfect world, I am the one flawed thing. All this power, and still I cannot heal my face. And you see Sue touching his face, and it is like, my guy's missing his nose, his skin is all like, he's hiding his eyes, but like you see his exposed, he is God Emperor Doom, and he has that exposure in his face. And it's just like, I can understand why you would want to cover that. I can understand why, and he does. That's why he wears the mask. But I do think that they'll take this version of Doom, and again, it's the MCU. Masks are going to be off, like, shocker, people. That's just what they do. And that's another reason why I feel like that supports the whole Tony Stark face thing of like, that is not actually him. But we have the technology, and in the MCU, they've had it for 11 years now. I think we talked about it. We saw it happen perfectly within Captain America, the Winter Soldier. So it's like, no, they might not have to stay up there, extra late for all the VFX and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's been there, right? But I do think it's a cool thing of hiding and really just doubling down on that insecurity. With all the power in the world, he still wants to be and look a certain way. fun fact, the fact that he exposes his face and Susan is like, I want them to see you like I see you. And you're like, no, the brainwashing is in full effect type of thing. But it's just like, again, how he gets Sue to be who she is and how he takes Reed's family is like, it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah.
What he did. But I do think that whole thing of, being flawed and insecure will tie into the overarching theme of identity
Mm-hmm.
and then lead into your moral aspect. Who am I? Who am I on the outside? Who am I on the inside? What's good? What's evil? What's up? What's down? Like that is going to be on full display. But again, the anchor to all of these themes is Doom based on what you're saying.
Agreed. 100%. So based on that, whose POVs do you think they should go through? Because both stories obviously go through different POVs. The later run kind of going through some of your more main heroes like Reed, T'Challa doing their own thing, and then Doom in between as they do that. And then in the 84 run, you kind of go through like Magneto, Doom as well, and you have between like Spider-Man and Reed and Colossus. Who do you think they should pull into for that POV for the movies?
And this is where I say, when you get to this point of kind of who the focal points of the movie, go read both because they're very different in different ways, especially for each of the teams. If we just start with the heroes first, in 2015, you very much, again, to your point, you have the Reed, you have some Spider-Man in here. T'Challa is a huge piece, which I think is great. And then you have Strange to an extent. I think some people have kind of said, like, is he a good guy or a bad guy? I put him on the good guy side of things, but closer to that morally gray aspect, which I think would be very fitting for Strange in the MCU anyways.
They've already played.
Yeah. So I don't think that would be a departure from his character or, I can't think of the word, but I think that definitely Strange far and away should be a point of view that we get. Obviously with Reed, I don't think and it makes me sad to say, and RIP Chadwick Boseman, but I don't think the Black Panther piece can really be pulled off. And I don't think Shuri should step into that role, unfortunately. But I do believe that could give and open the door for a Tom Holland Spider-Man to really step up.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel Spider-Man is very strong. It's funny, in the 1984 version, he gives me the vibes that I got from the 90s animated show.
Yeah.
Very much like that. But he definitely could be kind of your ace. He's smart enough. He's had enough experience. He's had enough screen time. I think now is the time he can kind of step into that limelight and be kind of that, not right hand to Reed, but that kind of 1A, 1B type character for the heroes.
I think this would be a perfect time to establish that Spider-Man Fantastic Four relationship.
Yeah, 100%.
Where they have 100%. That in the comics from the get-go, because those were the two big ones for Marvel back in the day and how much they interacted together. And I think them having that in here would really be able to kind of establish both and kind of be the reverse thing that Iron Man did for him when he started in his movies, where Tom started in his movies, where it's like by having the Iron Man association, it made him feel bigger within the MCU. Yeah. And if they do that here with the Fantastic Four, it would only amplify them even better, especially Reed.
I do think you have two other candidates, and one is going to be a little bit more obvious, and one is more of kind of a hope and wish. I do think there's a world where Sam can come into this and be a very effective character in a Doom-like world that leans more towards the 2015. I definitely think he could be that boots on the ground type of character and fill a role of like a surviving member who can interact with like a cabal or an Illuminati or some other like villainous group that's also trying to have an end goal of like stopping Doom. But I really wish, just simply based on the themes that we've been talking about, the one character that's screaming in my face, that's like, ooh, pick me, Daredevil. I think Daredevil in a movie that is surrounded by morality and identity and looking beyond what is surface and all that kind of stuff, I think he'd be a huge character that they can make new, they can make fresh. It could be its own version of the MCU. You could have Spider-Man and Daredevil be kind of your two sub aces in this story to really let people latch on and be like, hey, 1984 Secret Wars, sweet. 2015 Hickman run, nasty. MCU, when the MCU is at its bottom and they needed something to pull it out of the depths, dude, 20 whatever the heck it is, probably 2050 Secret Wars movie that we're going to get, awesome. I think that'd be super cool.
I do like that. I do like that because this is definitely the chance to take some of those characters that have been on the cusp of getting themselves into that like S tier status, to your point, like we've talked about a lot, and this is the time for them to step up and start going into that. And I do think that there will be some who do, and I think those are the more obvious ones like we've talked about. But yeah, 100%, this is where your times where you have someone like a She-Hulk could also ideally really step up based on what we saw in the 84 version of her and how her rivalry with Titania started, which they could easily do in here as well. This is your time to step those characters up. If they use Scar, really have him step into your new Hulk shoes and allow him to be the Hulk that we've been denied for years now. So yeah, I think that would be really cool to see.
Yeah. Hero wise, right? I think we have some good choices, but from a villain perspective, I think more so in 84, we got, Doom isn't necessarily like the end all be all. He's kind of goes through that chase to get that final power. And then, in kind of the final act, he has his moments. But you get a Galactus character who's very impactful in 1984 Secret Wars. And then you also kind of get this anti-hero antagonist mixed with protagonist in Magneto. So what are you thinking from kind of like an antagonist role? Whose point of view do you think would be impactful to kind of having this?
I think a good one that I think that we've been seeing a lot of people throw out and would really amplify the biggest talking moment that comes out of the comic. I think this is where you kind of step in with a King Thanos type situation, where you have that be the one big bad. Because unfortunately, with the casting, or not unfortunately, but with the casting of Ian McKellen, I don't think we're going to get another Magneto that will have a more like main character standpoint. So you need someone, and I think Thanos could really slip into, because it's just another callback to the history of the MCU. And you can have him be that, where he's like trying to work with the heroes, but because clearly he has his own motives, but also it's Thanos.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to be like, I don't know if I should trust you. Yeah. I don't know. And I think he could really also step into the shoes of someone like the Maker, where the Maker is what is allowing these villains to come in the 2015 version, allows them to survive and really kind of get to where they need to be. I think Thanos would really fit well into that role.
Yeah. And the funny thing is they have something really cool that they can play with, which is definitely kind of a key theme pulled from 2015, more so I think than 1984. But that aspect of like, let's say the incursions do happen. It's not like the start of 84. It's not a random, the Beyonders just like, boop, there you go. I'm like, yeah, magic genie lamp, anything you want, it can be yours. Fight to the death and I'll reward you with something.
Yeah.
Like that aspect is not in play here. We're talking boom, worlds collide. Hey, can't save everyone. God Emperor is like, I'm recreating the world in my image. Oh, by the way, none of you remember anything. This is all you've ever known, and this is all you will ever know. So when you get a character like a King Thanos that's in here, you have two interesting dynamics of like, do we let Thanos and everyone around him and all the heroes know that like this is a multiversal version of Thanos, but you're a bad dude, we don't trust you? Or do we do it where it's like they have no idea Thanos is an ally to the heroes, but you have that like inherent nature feel in your gut, like something isn't right about this guy, and as the layers kind of get peeled back as the story progresses, He's Thanos. Like, we as the audience know, like, that's a bad dude. But the heroes or whoever it is, that's kind of, and again, it could be a mix. It could be heroes and villains. But that specific group or team, they don't know who they're dealing with, type of thing.
And I think you kind of need someone to make those morally bad decisions, because in both kind of the 84, but more also the 2015 run and the lead up to it, a big focus is the Illuminati and what they have to do,
Yeah.
knowing
Yeah.
that what they have to do
Yeah.
isn't really a hero's choice. You are sacrificing a complete other world for your own.
Yeah.
And I think Thanos being the one to come in, make those decisions, and have heroes like Strange kind of be like, it's what we got to do.
Yeah.
And like you said, would not betray his character at all, because we've seen him do the same things in Infinity War and Endgame.
Right. And I think that's a cool thing in the 2015 run before my guy loses a spine is he survived from the old world. Again, that's something that preface as you go through. Battle World is a new world, and there are a subset of characters, both kind of good and bad, who do survive on their own versions of a life raft, and they show up in Battle World. And they remember what used to be, but 98% of the characters you come across have no clue that any of that stuff happened before what we're getting right now in Secret Wars. So you do have him come in and be like, listen, I tried, I had the power, I did good, I gave you my decision, all that blah, 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 blah. In the way that he portrayed it in, Infinity War is like, you guys should be grateful. I snapped and half the population's gone, so the other half can thrive. You guys can live long and prosper. Great. Like, he's made those morally questionable things, but you can flip it and spin it and write on a urinal, Thanos is right, just to say, hey, for the greater good, this decision had to be made. I'm not a good guy. I'm not a bad guy. And like, we really play Secret Wars in the gray. That is what typically in most of my favorite movies, that's what makes movies really good. That's why Batman is a really good character. That's why his rogues are really good characters. That's why we love allies of all of these superheroes, because you do get that play in the gray. Daredevil and Punisher.
Yeah.
Great example.
Yep.
Two choices. Are they good guys or are they bad guys? Well, they're both good guys, really. Would you say the Punisher is a good guy? Like, those types of themes and questions are something that I do think, to your point, Thanos would be my choice 1A. However, 1B, and I'm curious what you think. We've kind of here have talked about Sentry being a power source, a type of character. We know this is not a secret. We don't have a magic 8-ball. He's going to be in Doomsday. They've already announced that on the back of a chair. But Sentry, could he to you be a character who's utilized in that same role? And would he be someone who's best served? And if not him, do you have somebody else who you think would be good, either good or bad?
So I do think Sentry can be kind of your wild card. He can be someone who is either inherently good or inherently evil. Both runs kind of do that with Galactus and then Molecule Man. And I think you can have him be closer to Molecule Man. Because if based on what kind of our personal theories for Thunderbolts is, where he does kind of forget who he is, the heroes can kind of be like, oh, we can mold him, but so could the villains. And I think that could lead to an interesting like struggle between both sides, kind of like a little tug of war for what Sentry ultimately does. But I think it'd be cool if they definitely take it down the more Molecule Man route in the 2015 run, where Molecule Man is just there and he's not good and he's not evil. He's crazy, but he does help in taking down Doom and the villains, but not because he's a good person. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't do it because he's like, oh, you're the heroes and I should do this. Yeah. It's more like, this is more convenient. Like, you guys helped me out. So, like, you guys fed me, which is literally kind of the main thing that it boils down to. So, I'm going to help you guys.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be cool for them to use Sentry in a way like that, too.
Yeah, I agree. I agree because when you really do take that kind of combination of like specific characters in 2015 of the Molecule Man and kind of exactly what you said, but then go back to 1984 of like within each team, it was almost like watching an episode of like Big Brother or like Real World or something like that, where it's like you're all one house, but like there are many like alliances that happen within it, and then like you have an alliance one day and you might not have it the other day. It doesn't go that extreme. I think that's more focused on like Magneto trying to manipulate the situation and Doom trying to manipulate the situation on both of their sides.
Yeah.
But that would be cool. That would be cool to have the kind of that pseudo power struggle, which also would kind of align with like Galactus in a way. If Galactus isn't included, you need that like big power character that people
Yeah.
are trying to chase and be like, ooh, you can either really help us or I can take what you have and use it for my own doing and then make some moves. So I think they can do a lot with Sentry. They can do a
Yeah.
lot with Sentry. And by the way, if we're like absolutely glazing Sentry, we're huge fans of Sentry here at the Point Through podcast. And I'm going to say, I'll do it all day, every day. So
I agree. Yeah, I'm not gonna hide the love that I have for that character
no,
either. So
no,
yeah,
no,
if we can have a moment to
no.
kind of insert him into the picture and be like, they could use him. But it's
Yeah.
also one of the characters that truly, based on what he does in the comics and also what they could potentially set up in the MCU in just a couple days. I mean, yeah, he should fit that role.
Hmm.
No doubt in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Agree. Agree. But again, we know that there are big team ups. We know that there are a lot of characters. We know that there's going to be a gap, like you referenced at the beginning of this, in between Doomsday and the actual titled Secret Wars movie. My question for you, Hero: what will the rest of the MCU be doing the rest of the time in between and throughout these movies?
In a perfect world, and I think we talked about this before, Secret Wars would be a whole phase because that way you can really flesh out what everybody's doing in Battle World, kind of set up that whole world and culminate it in a big event that's just called Secret Wars at the end of it. It could be, and it doesn't have to be a two-parter. You'd be able to do it in one movie
Yeah.
because your setup was done. In this version, it's hard to kind of say what everybody will be doing because it's kind of like what focus do you go after? So I think if they're just gonna, let's say we're gonna keep it in just the one movie, I'd really say make sure you focus on Battle World and kind of the lands and how Battle World has been shaped by Doom and how these characters have been twisted by him. Maybe showing Sue being taken by him and the kids. Show your evil versions of characters that maybe we do expect, but also ones we don't. Like taking, for example, a Strange, someone who's obviously made morally gray decisions, kind of now being more pushed to do something more sinister, but again, not taking his away from his, from his character. I think this is also a perfect time to introduce other characters within the MCU, kind of like they did in both Secret Wars, where you had your Miles finally come in. I think you can, if you're going to take someone from your old Fox universe, maybe this is where you put in Deadpool and you have some of the focus go on him or some of the focus go on Hugh. But I think everybody in their own corners of the world are going to be plotting together on how to stop Doom.
Yeah. And it would be cool because again, I think the biggest question that comes out of this, and again, we can spend a whole hour or two talking about Battle World specifically, but I think it depends on how Battle World is created for me. Because when you look at both, you have, hey, there's an incursion, fade to white, enter new story. And you're like, well, where are we? And it's Battle World. And the world's been ticking for 8 years already. Like you're dropped into a pretty mature, brand new singular universe type of thing. Whereas in 1984, you kind of just have like, think of a snap. And then boom, you could have been eating one day and next thing you know, you're standing next to Cap and Cap's like, what are you doing here? And you're like, what are you doing here? And then you look across the room and you're like, oh, that's Ultron. What is he doing here? I thought we dealt with him. Oh, we didn't? Like, do we have to now? And you're like, oh, there's spider villains and all that kind of stuff. And like, so you have like two different versions of shock and awe. But if you go the random snap route, I think you can still play the movies the way that they're played. You're just
Yeah.
establishing characters, right? Everyone's just
Hmm.
business as usual for the MCU, which I think is probably the easiest yet most likely route for them. I even look at Spider-Man. Like, you can take that 84 storytelling of being like, event A happens, but the next thing we see isn't event B, it's event like 0 type of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's next in the lineup just based on real world things and how that happened. So I think you can do that. The more interesting version of it is literally, to your point, should have been a freaking phase. We should have gotten boom, incursion, you get your final battle. Because again, 2015 starts hot. It
Yeah.
starts off hot. It kind of reminds me of the start of Man of Steel. I
A
know
little bit.
blasphemy. I'm using DC within a Marvel, but like to visualize the feel in a way, it's like the world is ending. Things are happening. You need to either get out or just stand there and just watch it all because it's over for you. Like the weight of the moment is pretty large. And then you get insight for your characters and heroes of like what's going on. I thought it's super cool though, because it did remind me like the start of Infinity War when the big old wheel shows up and everybody's like,
Yeah.
assemble, we need to mobilize. And then you
Yeah.
get like your first like fight of like, I'm fighting, but I don't really know what's going on. I don't have much information. So either way, I think it could be cool. But again, I definitely think the more interesting route is definitely an established battle world to where on each of these regions, you have these versions of characters who are doing something else in a different place. I think it'd be super cool to see the Thor core.
Yeah.
Chris Hemsworth, Liam Hemsworth, any Hemsworth who wants to dress up and put on
All of
long
them.
blonde hair,
Yeah.
I'd
All
be
of
like,
them.
let's roll. You can have a tiny Thor, you could have a big Thor, you can have so many different versions and give us just something fun that leans into this whole mess that is the MCU multiverse, but it gives us memorable moments of characters that we're probably only going to have for a handful of years more as it stands with the castings that exist now. So, um, they have options and a lot of good options, but just do Battle World. Give us the regions. Give us the
Yeah.
regions.
Yeah. And I think this will be a good stopping point for right now for those watching because Battle World is so worthy of its own breakdown and what they could potentially do. And we have a lot of theories on what they should do and what we think they'll do based on the MCU. So definitely stay tuned to that because this is just kind of the setting the stage for what Secret Wars and Doomsday are going to be offering up. As time continues to go on, obviously we're going to get more and more. As of the recording of this video, today is the first day that they started filming. So, make sure you stay tuned to us here at Point 3 Podcast because we are going to be covering a lot of the news that comes out of this and kind of what we think will happen out of it and what should happen. So, if that sounds like something interesting to you, then please, please, please make sure you stay here with us because we want to share it all with all of you. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. But with that, man, 3 things that everybody's got to keep doing. You got to keep watching. You got to keep reading. Definitely keep reading. Definitely keep reading. Of course, you got to keep nerding out. Everyone, Lou Hero Scroll signing off. We will see you in the next one.